Indiana football is not getting enough respect, but we're going to give it to them. And welcome in to the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. We're presented and brought to you by FanDuel. Appreciate you being here for this special weekend edition of the Big Ten Huddle. Always go live on Sunday nights with Zach, but also like to try and put out some weekend shows for you guys, as well as I like it. You know, there's not a ton of people that make content on the weekend, and I always appreciate when content creators do that. And so I want to create that content for you guys. Going to have 3 different segments in this video. Going to be talking Finebaum. All right. So if you don't want any ESPN bias in your ears, I get it, but don't worry. I'm going to push back against it, and we'll work through this together. Okay. Also, we're going to get to the big conversation. Indiana 2025 versus LSU 2019. All right. I'm going to make the distinction of my own. I'm not saying this is anybody else's, my own, between which two are better. And then we had some good Big Ten basketball on Saturday that we're going to recap here at the end as well. Always love making the Big Ten basketball content, so we're going to deliver some of that for you guys here as well. So please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us. 5-star rating and review if you're with us here on podcast. And if you are with us on podcast, definitely appreciate everybody that does that as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into some of this stuff because we don't have a lot to get into, but we have a good amount. So, Paul. Oh boy. Paul Finebaum has come out on ESPN, as he does, as per usual, and he has some thoughts. He has some comments on Indiana, and he's called them cute. He said it's a cute story. So I have the quote here on the graphic next to me. If you're listening on podcast, Paul Finebaum said this. He said meaning if Indiana wins the national championship, he said it will be a cute story and it will get some attention on Tuesday morning. He references the guys talking to Matt. He says, but it really won't get that much. It's all about what's next in the NFC, AFC championship games. That's what Paul Finebaum decided to say. When he was talking about Indiana, and if they win the national championship, his biggest critique was, but it won't get enough media attention. Now, we all know Paul Finebaum wants the SEC to get the media attention. He wants, and he's essentially saying on ESPN, where college football is their main driving force. They get like one NFL game a week. You know, Monday Night Football is, I'm pretty sure that's their only NFL game that they have. They have NFL games on Prime, all these other, Fox, CBS, all these other different places. ESPN only gets Monday Night Football. But apparently, Paul Finebaum wants to tell us that the biggest thing that's going on is not so much college football, but it's actually the NFL. And yeah, you could say, well, maybe he's just trying to be real here and trying to look at the facts and say what's going on. Even if that were the case, Paul Finebaum has a duty to college football as somebody who is talking about college football, who covers college football, to help other people understand how big of a moment this is. You know, this isn't Georgia winning their second national championship in a row, and there's not very much parity in the sport. This is one of the most parodious, whatever you want to call it. This is one of the times when there has been the most parity in college football in the modern era, and it's been fantastic. And Indiana is a great part of that story. In all honesty, and I tweeted this out. Indiana's success has made it really easy to see who truly loves college football and who doesn't. And with comments like this, we see a very clear reason to know that Paul Finebaum doesn't love college football. Paul Finebaum doesn't care about college football. Paul Finebaum cares about the SEC. Paul Finebaum cares about his ESPN paycheck. And this is the risk that anybody who decides to work with ESPN gets put on them. Now, I know some people who work for ESPN, and I think they are great people. All right. I don't go after people and say you're a terrible person, make it personal. For all I know, Paul Finebaum could be a good person. Okay. I'm not attacking them personally here. But what I am saying is that ESPN has become such an incredible SEC bias machine that any single person who decides to appear on their network, who decides to appear on their YouTube channels, their podcast channels, falls into the risk of having this I don't care about college football mindset. I only care about SEC football. And that's really what Paul Finebaum completely entails. There's a lot of people that want to talk about how, Joel Klatt is the Paul Finebaum of the SEC. Joel Klatt is the Paul Finebaum of the Big Ten. This guy's this guy. This guy's this. Paul Finebaum does not care about college football. All he cares about is SEC football. And for a lot of these other guys you want to talk about, you want to say Joel Klatt, you want to talk about some of these other guys, it it's just simply not true. These guys do actually care about college football in a variety of ways. And if Paul Finebaum did care about college football, he would get in there and start talking about all the incredible achievements of this Indiana football program and where they came from, the losingest Power Four program in the history of college football. They actually got away from that this season. Northwestern is now that. Kirk Cinetti has won so much that they have now improved their record so much, which is still 534 to 750 with 44 ties overall. It is still such a terrible record, but they did manage to pass Northwestern. And this story is apparently not big. This story is apparently not enough for ESPN to acknowledge that this is more than just Tuesday morning news. Now, I get it. There's not the parity here of Ohio State last year, who lost 2 games. They lost to Michigan, and they're coming back. But there is so much in this. There is so much about Fernando Mendoza. There is so much about the coordinators and them, coming up with Kirk Cinetti, so many different ways. There's so much in here about how much Indiana has accomplished as a program, how much Indiana has accomplished in all essence of college football as well. I mean, this is the same network that was telling people last year that Indiana should not belong back in the college football playoffs. Remember, Kirk Herbstreit wanted to say, let's stop looking at wins. We don't want to look at wins anymore. Let's look at all these other stupid metrics and everything else. And that team that made them say all of those stupid things is now on the verge of winning the national championship, possibly. They are on the verge of possibly defeating Miami, a team that is also back. I think they already are back, but some Miami fans want to say they're not back until they win a national championship. I get that. But to defeat another team that has had issues the past years and they need to kind of revive their program and everything else, to do that as well, you can't say this is just a Tuesday morning story. You can't say it's just a Tuesday morning story. It is so much bigger than that. And because it's not SEC related, because they don't want to give the Big Ten credit, because they care more about what's on their television screens than what's happening on the field, they want to say it's not a big story. Indiana is a huge story. Indiana is one of the biggest stories in the modern college football era. Indiana came out of the pits of college football history to have one of the most insane 2-year runs and to possibly cap it off with a national championship. Not only that, they have completely changed college football. College football is going through an incredible change right now. The transfer portal, the roster construction, recruiting, all of these things. Indiana is single-handedly changing the way many coaches look at creating their roster, at retaining their roster. Ohio State, the group that had developed here on their walls, just went away from we're going to focus mostly on recruiting to say we're actually going to let our star recruits, our star freshmen, our star sophomores, we're going to let them go to the portal because we got to bring in dudes that are going to be able to win it all. The biggest brand in college football, Ohio State, just said we're going to subtract our biggest slogan, developed here, and we are going to say portal here. I mean, they don't actually say that, but that's essentially what they're doing. Do they still have young guys who've grown up in their program and developed and stuff? Of course, but it's not the same. They had guys who were going to be starters, at least 2 or 3 guys that were projected to be starters on next year's team, hit the portal. So that way they could bring in a more established player, Terry Moore, right? A number of other guys out there. Devin McEwen possibly at wide receiver, Riley Parker, Kyle Parker possibly at wide receiver, James Parker, the Alabama transfer, John Walker, the defensive line transfer, all these guys that there would have been a spot for other dudes to be able to work up on there. It's changing. It's completely changing because of Kirk Cinetti in Indiana. They are changing who leads the conference of college football right now. Does this mean the Big Ten will lead it forever? No, of course not. But right now, the SEC not making the national championship game 3 years in a row, and if Indiana wins it all, that would cement the Big Ten as the best conference in college football. And nobody could make an argument against it. And honestly, like they're changing the mindset of college football right now. I heard a quote from Cole Kubelik on the Cube Show, which I do like Cole Kubelik. I think Cole Kubelik does a good job. He's an SEC guy, but I think he does a good job, and I think he gives credit where credit is due, which is I think what's most important. You can be an SEC guy, you can be a Big Ten guy, but if you give credit where credit is due, I think that's what's most important. And Cole Kubelik does that. Cole Kubelik on his show said that he was talking to Bryant Haynes, and Bryant Haynes said that one of the things that makes this Indiana team different from other teams is he said, quote, our team wants to win more than they want to get drafted, end quote. So many teams set the bar, get drafted. Let's win here, but also come to get drafted. You know, you're going to come to Ohio State. You're going to come to Georgia. You're going to come to Alabama. You're going to come to USC, Oregon, whatever it might be. And you're going to get drafted high because we're going to make sure. But not at Indiana. That's not what Indiana says. Indiana says, you're going to come here and you're going to win. All of this is what should be talked about on ESPN, on Fox, on YouTube. All of this stuff is what should be dominating the airwaves right now of college football, because college football is going through one of the largest changes that it has gone through in the modern era. But it's not getting what it deserves. They're not talking about how connected this team is. They're not talking about how this team just went through their final practice. Holly Rowe did. Holly Rowe talked about it on X. She made a little video about it. And you can say that, you know, well, there's no actual real football analysis here or anything like that. It's one of the reasons why we love college football is because it's not just football. It's tradition. It's where many of us went to university and started to form our lives, right? Started to figure out who we are. It's where some of us met the most important people in our lives, the friends that we'll have for the rest of our lives, sometimes our spouses, our partners for the rest of our lives. It's where some of us found our first job. College football is so much more than football. Yes, it is football, but it's so much more than football. And to be able to talk about that and talk about how these guys are leaving, like eligibility rules right now are in mass chaos and everything else. They're trying to hold all this stuff together. But these guys are going to have to leave. This isn't the NFL where it's like, yeah, we'll still be in the league, but we'll just be playing for a different team. Now, I mean, these guys that are graduating, these guys that are going to the draft, they know this was their last practice together. And Holly Rowe talked about that. I mean, I'll just show you the video real fast. It's a quick little video by Holly Rowe, and she gives some nice credit. All right, here it is.
Okay, I'm a little emotional about something. I am just walking off the practice field where Indiana has just finished their practice. I'm sorry, my hair's crazy. After practice ends, all the players start going up to each other. I'm going to cry. And just hug each other. And they're just like, I love you, man. I love you so much. This is our last practice ever together. And this is going to be and they are so emotional with each other and loving and honoring and supporting each other. And I'm like, you just cannot make this up. There is something super special about this team. You feel it. I don't know if they're going to win Monday, but I can tell you this team loves each other. They're going to play hard for each other.
And if you went to college and you have a connection to a college, if you didn't go to the college, obviously you can still be a fan there. I'm not one of those people. It's like you can't be a fan at a place because you didn't go to college there. But for a lot of people, if you did go to that college or you just had the college experience, you understand what these players are going through. You understand the love of the brotherhood that a football team goes through, the love of your brother that you go to school with, right? That you're friends with and you are going to be going away from, because that's what life does. But no, apparently it's just a story that won't make it past Tuesday morning. It's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. I can get through a lot of what Paul Finebaum says. I can't get through that. We'll be right back. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Hit the next segment. Talking more about Indiana. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comment section. Are you with me that this is more than just football? That Indiana is accomplishing so many firsts in college football, that as a program, they are changing college football, that it deserves to be talked about? We'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. It's been a hot topic of debate, as many people have been wondering who is the better college football team, Indiana in 2025 or LSU, the long thought of as the best college football team of the modern era. Yeah, sure, you can throw a couple Alabama teams in there, Miami 2001, but really the one that most people remember and most people watched and can reflect on is LSU 2019. And rightfully so, Indiana is in that conversation. Who is the better team? 2025 Indiana or 2019 LSU. And I think it's a very interesting conversation. Both of these teams 15-0. Obviously LSU played in a 14 playoff. They did not have the opportunity to play a third game like Indiana did. Both of them won their conference. LSU went 8-0 in the regular season in their conference. Indiana went 9-0 in their conference in the regular season. And in fact, when you look at the strength of record on this one, LSU and Indiana are very similar in strength of record. LSU is 25.8 in the simple rating system that sportsreference.com does. And then Indiana is at 25.35. So LSU 25.8, Indiana 25.35. Sure, LSU still stronger, but I would love to see what that looks like after the national championship game when Indiana plays that. And obviously, all of this is prefaced by Indiana's only in this conversation if they win at all. If Indiana doesn't beat Miami, this isn't even a conversation. But if Indiana does beat Miami, they'll probably have a better strength of record. Excuse me. Strength of schedule, strength of record, yeah. And they would honestly probably have a better situation for themselves. Now, strength of record by sportsreference.com is assembled with the idea that it's a rating that takes into account the average point differential and strength of schedule. Now, one thing that I like that they do is when they do the average point differential, they don't assign the differential if it's lower than 7, so it's just a one-score game. That's all they care about. And then they don't assign it if it's above 24 points. So if you beat a team 77-3, that's obviously going to do much better in some areas with the strength of margin of victory. But in this one, they just cap it at 24 because what's really the difference between you beating a team 63-3 and 77-3? Congrats, your backups did better. Who cares, right? And so I think that's a very interesting way to look at it, and I appreciate the Sports Reference does that. If you look at the betting odds with this, I don't know if these were FanDuel odds for this game, but I can give you the FanDuel odds of the Indiana game. But back when the national championship was played in 2020, because it was 2019 season, January 13th, 2020, LSU faced off against Clemson. LSU was favored in that game by 5.5. LSU was money line minus 220. Clemson was plus 180 money line. And the over-under for that game was set at 68.5. Holy cow. Offense galore. I think that game was what, 42-25, 49-25. Might have been 45-25. So, yeah, they went over in that one. For the upcoming 2026 college football playoff national championship on FanDuel, Indiana is a significant favorite, more so over Miami than LSU was over Clemson, an 8.5 point favorite. And on the money line, Indiana is minus 335 on FanDuel. Miami is plus 270. The total over-under is set at 47.5. Obviously showing more respect for Indiana's defense and showing more respect as Indiana is the much better team against Miami. Now, would this look different if it was a top 4 seeded team rather than the number 10 team in Miami? Maybe. Miami also beat Ohio State. They beat Texas A&M. They beat Ole Miss. So they're going to get a whole lot more credit for winning those games. In addition to that, you go to the metrics here, and I'm actually going to share my screen here. I know you guys love my my fancy graphics here. But if you look at the metrics, and from what I have gathered from many college football conversations, there seem to be 5 metrics that people hold the most value to. And I'm not saying these are the 5 that I hold the most value to, but they just seem to be the 5 that other people hold the most value to. And if you have a different one, then feel free and go check it. But of those 5 metrics, Indiana beats out 2019 LSU in 4 or 3 of the 5 metrics. One of them they tie, and the other one, LSU beats out Indiana. So in SP plus, FPI, and FEI, Indiana beats out LSU in the terms of the ranking. Now, in the rating, Indiana and LSU are tied at 33.1 rating, which I found very interesting. In FPI, Indiana is higher with a 31.7, and then in FEI, Indiana is higher with a 1.89. And Indiana is first place this season in all of those. LSU wasn't first place in any of them. They were second in SP Plus behind Ohio State, third in FPI behind Ohio State and Clemson, and then second in FEI behind, you guessed it, Ohio State. If you look at average adjusted EPA per play, estimated points added per play, LSU beats out Indiana plus 37 or plus 0.37, Indiana plus 0.23. And that one definitely has some, pieces to it. It's about efficiency, consistency, all that stuff. How well do you move the ball? How well do you stop the other team from moving the ball and stuff like that? And I do think that is a valid metric. I wouldn't use it personally to determine who is the better team, but other people might, and consistency is definitely a thing that you need to utilize. And then game control, both of these teams were first. There's no game control rating, it's just the ranking of all the teams that season, and both of these teams were first. So very close here. Tied in SP Plus, I think, is very interesting. And then when you get into the scoring comparison, LSU far outscores Indiana, 726 points in the season, 48.4 points per game. Indiana, 639 points, 42.6. And this is really when you begin to see the difference between these two teams, because Indiana is so much better defensively and LSU is so much better offensively, which is not totally insane. Different clock rules and stuff like that. Nowadays, the clock continues to run after first down, right? In most parts of the game, I think it's under the 2 minutes that it switches to, it has to be placed first. And then in the other parts of it, on offense, where teams were much more powerful in 2019, especially with an air raid system where incompletions and first downs were galore, you were able to stop the clock more and be able to continue to work things. So, but I do think that the average scoring margin per game tells a big story here. LSU plus 26.5, Indiana plus 31.5. So even though Indiana was not scoring as many points as LSU, still higher margin of victory. All right, and then the other part here, I'm going to actually go back to here. The other part here is I did kind of a position by position, coach by coach comparison. And I'm just going to give you my quick thoughts on this. If you guys want another video on this where I kind of go more in depth, let me know. But head coach Kirk Cinetti, Ed Orgeron. You're joking yourself if you say Ed Orgeron. Ed Orgeron essentially had one magical season at LSU, and he's not been in coaching since. He got fired a couple years later. He's not been in coaching since. Kirk Cinetti has taken one of the worst programs in college football and turned them into probably a national champion. I don't want to say for sure yet. We'll see what happens. Offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan, pro spread, RPO, variety of run schemes, elite efficiency, and then Steve Ensminger and Joe Brady together, they ran the air raid, kind of a hybrid system. I'm actually going to go with Indiana in this one because similar production with more variety. And if you believe the NFL draft and everything else, less talented. The coach is objectively working with a less talented team here in Indiana. And that's what everybody has said about Indiana. They're not as talented as Ohio State. They're not as talented as Alabama. They're not as talented as Oregon. The team, the team talent ranking, yada, 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 yada. Well, great coaching makes up for a lack of athleticism, a lack of talent, whatever you want to call it. I'm not disrespecting Indiana here. I'm just talking through the talking point that's out there that, well, Indiana, they're not as talented as other teams. But what they are is an extremely well-coached team, a team that executes very well. And I think you have to give the credit to Mike Shanahan there. And then I do the same thing with Bryant Haynes here as well. Bryant Haynes and that defense was far better than LSU's defense that they had in 2019. 10.3 points per game, 21 points per game for LSU that they allowed. Yards per game, more turnovers for Indiana, better turnover margin. I don't know if more turnovers, but I know better turnover margin, all this stuff. So Indiana clears in all three coaching areas. Now, if you look at the offense, I do think that Joe Burrow surpasses Fernando Mendoza. I think at best it's a push. And that's a lot of that's just because Fernando Mendoza doesn't have the volume. He doesn't have the yards of what Joe Joe Burrow does. Joe Burrow had over 60, or he did have 60 touchdown passes. As you know, Fernando Mendoza had 41 and 6 interceptions. Sure, Joe Burrow had a better completion percentage. This is not me talking bad about Fernando Mendoza at all. I'm just saying I don't think you can give this to Fernando Mendoza here. I don't think you can give the running back to Roman Hemby here. I go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the wide receivers and the tight ends, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I go with over Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Surratt. And this is not an insult to them. This is just the way the offense was for LSU, how explosive they were, how incredible they were, how much talent they had. The offensive line for LSU won the Joe Moore Award. You have to give credit where credit is due here. It was one of the best, most elite protection groups that we've seen in college football in a long time. But then when you get to the defensive side, in my opinion, Indiana sweeps it. Defensive line, Indiana. Better production, better defensive statistics to hold teams. Linebackers, Aiden Fisher, Isaiah Jones, Elijah Hardy over Jacob Phillips, Patrick Queen, those guys. They have the best havoc rate in the nation, a better havoc rate, the front seven havoc rate than LSU. Their coverage skills are elite. Their simulated pressure and what they're able to send. Their tackling ability is more elite, in my opinion. And then when you get to a defensive backs, we'll help LSU out here. We'll go with a push. Okay. LSU didn't have a terrible secondary. LSU actually had the Jim Thorpe Award winner, Grant Delpit. He was the Thorpe Award winner, and D'Angelo Pons is the best cornerback in the nation. So Lewis Moore, really good safety there for Indiana, but we'll go with a push. I think Indiana's secondary is better. I think the stats and everything else backs that up. But LSU has the awards, so we'll go with a push. LSU has the awards. Indiana has the stats. We'll say push. And then special teams is far, 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 far more Indiana. Better special teams position rate on the field. Better kicking record for most extra points set in a season by Indiana. You have to go Indiana here. And so if you go by the position by position comparison, overall, Indiana holds the edge in 6 of 11 categories. Pretty good. LSU has the offensive firepower that Indiana has as well. They're just more efficient with it and also playing a different, time of college football with different rules. And then Indiana has more of the defensive prowess, which you could say the clock rules and stuff like that, but I still think you have better efficiency from Indiana here than you do from LSU. So overall, if my key takeaways for here is I'd probably still lean LSU for Indiana, for LSU for offense, and I would strongly say Indiana for defense. Coaching, I would strongly say Indiana. And so what I would go down to here is I would say the more talented team, LSU. The better team, Indiana. And who did we see win out this season when Indiana went up against teams that everybody said was more talented than them? Indiana. I'm going to go with Indiana as the better team here than 2019 LSU. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'm sure I'm going to have some LSU fans, maybe some SEC fans that are against me with it. All I would say is if you're against me with it, where do you disagree with me on this position by position breakup here? Where on the defense is LSU better than on defense with Indiana? Where on the coaching staff is LSU better than Indiana's? I think you have a hard time disagreeing with me on any of those. I think you can make arguments for some of the offensive ones for Indiana. I don't think you have an argument for any of the coaching or defensive ones except maybe defensive backs. And that's it. That's my thoughts. Thanks for listening to this part. We'll be right back after this. Got some really fun Big Ten basketball action happening on Saturday night. 8 games in total, and there was defeat, but there was also wins. We're going to talk more about the wins than we do the defeats in this one. But overall, Purdue and Nebraska remain atop the Big Ten standings as they both take care of business. Close one there for Purdue going up against USC, but they both take care of business. Both remain undefeated in the Big Ten, while you have Illinois, Michigan, and Michigan State taking care of business as well. And those teams are all 3 6-1 in the conference, and right there knocking on the door of the Purdue's and Nebraska there at the top of the conference. Going to go game by game here and give some quick thoughts, and then we'll kind of do some overarching stuff at the end. Number 13, Illinois, 77 against against Minnesota, number 67 points. I keep wanting to say number. I don't know why. Illinois, I mean, they shook off a sluggish start here. The starters were not great in the first half, but Big Z, Zvonimir Avicic, Keaton Wagler, Mihailo Petrovic had a bit of a shot in the arm for the last few minutes of the first half there that helped propel them there. And then I don't think Illinois would have been in the same spot to be able to get this win without Zvonimir Avicic. So hats off to him. You saw the twins play together, Tomislav and Zvonimir, in this game with Mihailo Petrovic. I really liked what I saw there. The depth was huge for Illinois in this one, where Ben Hummerkaus and Jake Davis didn't really get the production that maybe some fans want them to see, but you did get production from Zvonimir Avicic, and you do have just a fantastic closer in Keaton Wagler. I cannot say enough good things about Keaton Wagler. I mean, this team just thrives on the luxury of how many different pieces they have that can score, how many different pieces they have that can defend, and it was a great win for Illinois. Like I said, 77-67. Ohio State at home gets the win, 86-74 over UCLA. The Buckeyes built an early lead and dominated the glass in a resume bolstering home win for the Buckeyes. They did a fantastic job in this one, and John Mobley Jr., he had a fantastic game, 28 points, 5 3-pointers, and you just got to see Christoph Tilly come back in this game and come back from injury, and he was good as well. The hot shooting for the Buckeyes, continues to be exactly what they need to make them, such a dangerous team. And then this bubble-bound Ohio State team avoids a terrible pitfall. We'll see if they can finish out the season avoiding those same things, but at least for now, they avoided that pitfall against UCLA, and that was huge for them, and not so great for UCLA. Michigan 81, Oregon 71. Closer game than expected, but Michigan does complete the 2-0 West Coast sweep over this Oregon team that was doing a great job on the glass. Oregon struggled on the defensive glass a little bit in this one, but Elliot Cadeau, 17 points, 5 assists. Amari Burnett, his spark fueled the comeback. And Ade Mara, I mean, I continue to love watching this guy play. Liked him better when he was with UCLA, obviously, but he's still a really good player and fun to watch. They made good adjustments. Dusty May continues to be a really good coach. Michigan continues to do well on the road this season. They are going to have to improve that defensive rebounding. That is something we're going to continue to look at with this team. But overall, good win for Michigan. Got out of it. Went 2-0 on the sweep out west. And at the end of the day, that's really all you can ask for. Get sweep the road games there and come back home. Iowa gets the win, 74-57 over Indiana. Iowa snapped a 4-game losing streak. The Hawkeyes dominated the second half in Bloomington. So much so that Indiana fans are questioning Darren DeVries now. Is he the coach? Did Scott Dolson make a good hire here? Time will tell. Obviously, emotional one in this one, but my suggestion to you, Indiana fans, would be just pay attention to football for a little bit longer. Okay, you don't have all that much time with it left, so just pay attention to it. It's a fun ride. Iowa was very efficient in this game. Bennett Sturts was fantastic. Iowa improves to 13-5, 3-4 in the Big Ten, and they just have a lot of potential with this team. Banks is their number 2 scorer. Fulgaris, I liked him. He's going to continue to elevate this team. Good stuff here by Iowa, and we'll see how they continue to go. Purdue, number 5, Purdue in the country, 69-64 over USC. The Boilermakers erased a 14-point deficit on the road. They went on a 30-10 run to keep them undefeated in the Big Ten. Braden Smith, Oscar Clough, Jack Benter, he had a whole lot of hustle in this game. He got 7 rebounds, had 2 charges as well. Fantastic stuff. That's the thing that needs to be in the stat column more often, but fantastic stuff here from Braden Smith and Oscar Clough. You really saw the veteran prowess of this Purdue team on display here. Purdue wins without peak performances by Fletcher Lawyer and Trey Coffin-Wren, and their depth is really what helped them a lot in this game. So fantastic stuff there from Purdue. Not as close, closer than you wanted it to be, but you came out of there with the win. And USC, they're no slack. USC's got some good players on that team, so count it as a good win. Number 12, Michigan State wins 80-63 over Washington. The Spartans pulled away 4th straight win, avenging some of their West Coast woes that they've had before. Jeremy Fears continues to be so good. 14 points in the second half, finished with 19 total points. He helped with a key 12-2 run. Kurtang continues to hit threes in this one. Carson Cooper, he had 10 points, adding with his defense that he provides for this team as well. Season low of only 5 turnovers for Michigan State, looking better on that end. And overall, Michigan State 16-2, 6-1. Boy, egg on my face for doubting this Michigan State team going into the season. They look like a fantastic team. Tom Izzo's really found his groove with these guys. Jackson Kohler, Carson Cooper, like I said, Jeremy Fears. These guys are looking fantastic right now, getting the win here over Washington. Another team that looked fantastic was Wisconsin, 96 to against Rutgers. In this one, put up a bunch of points, and Rutgers just couldn't really do anything about it. Wisconsin went crazy in this one. The Badgers exploded offensively, led by Nick Boyd's 32 points. Nolan Winter had 18 points, 5 rebounds, and John Blackwell had 19 points, 3 threes as well. 12 threes in this game. What was fantastic from the physical front court that sustained a 26-point lead in this game, and Wisconsin's 3-point barrage kind of saw more, a lot of what we saw last season from Wisconsin. So excellent stuff there. And then the biggest story, Nebraska continues to be unbeaten, 18-0. I think their most wins that they've had in a long time was like 17 wins or something like that. I apologize. I just double checked. 26 wins is the record in a season for Nebraska in Big Ten. Well, since they've been in the Big Ten, 23 wins is the record. Looks like Nebraska should be able to skate right on by that, as they are 18-0 this season, and they look like one of the best teams in the country. They don't get enough credit for how good they've looked. Jamarcus Lawrence, he's looked great. Burke. Terrible job of pronouncing his last name every single time, but you know who I'm talking about. They held Martinelli to 7 points in the second half. Really great defensive basketball there. Second half rebounding. They cleaned up and opened up transition. Fans turned out for the Big Red invasion, and you just gotta love to watch this Nebraska team right now playing basketball, doing a fantastic job. You really saw road teams shine in this time. On Saturday in the Big Ten. A lot of teams got a lot of bench production as well, which is what you need to see from a lot of these teams that are going to contend for the Big Ten. You're going to have tough road games, and you're going to have games where you need the bench to come out and contribute. Got that from Illinois, got that from Purdue, got that from Michigan State. Good job by those teams, and those teams are showing why they are teams that are going to be reckoned with in college basketball and in the Big Ten this season. So good defensive identity emerged for teams. The forced turnovers. Nebraska had a 19% forced turnover rate. Iowa had an edge of 17-6 in their game with the turnovers. It was really, really good to see for some of the defense there to be able to do those things. Even Illinois got some more some more steals in their game that maybe you're used to seeing with them. So that was fantastic. And then some of these breakout stars that we saw in these games. Obviously, you're going to talk about Braden Smith and Bennett Sturts and them, but Jeremy Fears Jr., he continues to be a star that's on the rise. Banks, Boyd, Zvonimir Visic, he continues to be somebody that's on the rise. And Christoph Tilley, him coming back in that game. Junie Mobley Jr., John Mobley Jr., Junie Mobley is what they call him. He looked really good with his three-point shooting. That three-point shooting is there, but he doesn't always have it with the star power. But for him to be able to go out there and hit threes there at the end of the half and hit so many and just have the confidence brewing in him, it's going to be really important that continues to move forward with the Ohio State Buckeyes. So no big upsets in this one. I do think Indiana was favored at home, so I think Iowa got the upset in that game. I believe that was the only upset on the odds that was of the day, unless I'm missing one off the top of my head. I don't think I'm missing one. I was just looking at it earlier because Purdue won. They should have won. Ohio State won, and they were favored, especially at home. They were favored. Of course, my phone's not going to pull it up as I'm still here right now. Minnesota did cover, but they didn't win. Rutgers covered because they scored 87 points. Really the only one that got the win with the upset was Iowa, and that was a big upset, 74-57 in that game. But credit to Iowa's defense and all that they were able to do. So banner day for the Big Ten, a lot of fun stuff. Looking forward to continue to talk Big Ten basketball with you all. Thank you so much for watching and listening here on the Big Ten Huddle. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.